What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hopsgeeknews, a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and of course, we feature a beer of the week. This week, we are talking about Echo's comic book origin because the 5-episode Spotlight series from Marvel has come out on Disney Plus, and we are going to be talking about a little bit of a background for you because there was no Marvel Legends that came out. Surprisingly, they didn't give you any background at all into the character, and so we're here for you. First things
I noticed
first,
that, but they did do pretty good in the first episode of catching people up. I think that might be why.
They did. As always, Hops Geek News, any podcasting platform, any social media platform, that's where we're at. Find us at MegaCon. We are going to have probably 2 panels. We're going to be roaming around all weekend. We're probably going to be at Mosh Isley. We're probably going to be at Epcot. We're going to be everywhere. So come hang out with us. Find us February 1st through 4th as Lauren angrily bangs on her other computer in the background and just looks miserable there. My beer of the week, of course, though, comes from RIP to this brewery, Ellipsis Brewing out of Florida. It is Great Helmet. It is a delicious IPA with a nice little Spaceballs featurette on it, and it's brewed with Mosaic and YQH 1320. It's an 8.1% ABV IPA. It's delicious. I don't have a glass today, so I'm drinking out of the can, kind of like some sort of savage, you know?
Savage.
I know. I am off my game lately. I don't know what's happening. The holidays have me wiped out. I'm tired all the time. It's crazy. So are you drinking anything? I know you're not feeling well and you're having computer issues.
I went out there and I was going to grab a water and I was like, I'm going to grab a beer, but I was like, I'll be smart and get a water. I feel like this whole dry January thing nipped me in the ass. Cause I'm like, fuck dry January. I'm not doing that.
And then here you are.
Here I am drinking water because I don't feel 100%.
Honestly, that's kind of where I was at too. Like, I'm not doing dry January. And then last week I didn't drink a beer until Sunday during the Packers game. And then this week I was like, I'm not even necessarily feeling a beer, but now I kind of was like, all right, I'll grab one. I'll just sip on it. If I want to finish it, great. If not, then it's how it's, I don't know, man. Everybody's getting sick. I think with the getting darker earlier and the cold and it's been rainy and stormy lately, I'm just kind of off my game.
Make a michelada, but then I went out to the kitchen and the kids are like making a gingerbread house that I bought a couple weeks ago that we never did. And Josh is out there making dinner and I'm like,
never mind.
I don't want to get all the stuff out and make a drink.
Get out of here. Yeah, it's okay. You know what? Because we're saving ourselves because, dude, we're going to be at MegaCon soon. We're going to be at breweries. We're going to be meeting up at breweries, potentially with some friends of ours, comic book creator friends and all sorts of friends, maybe a brewery meetup. So we're going to be doing that. So let's go into what we've been reading or watching. This week, have read Thunderbolts issue number 2 from Marvel Comics with our friends Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, excuse me. This issue pretty much has Bucky and Natasha and Yelena. They consider themselves a throuple in this case. They're going to a very big gala where surprise Kingpin is at, and they're stealing money from him. Very good issue, very colorful, very beautiful. I also read their Outsiders from DC Comics. That's a very weird story. This issue 3 went into the brain of Bruce Wayne, Batman, which was very just off the wall and strange. I highly recommend that. I've read Transformers issue number 4 from Daniel Warren Johnson and Skybound. Man, this issue action-packed to the brim. It's absolutely incredible what they're doing in this series. It's a 80s cartoon come to comic books, and it's just a lot of fun, man. Like Optimus Prime is an absolute badass, and Starscream and the Decepticons are getting their butts whooped, Of course they got to. And aside from that, I've watched the latest Percy Jackson episode. I really like this. I thought the inclusion of Edge as Ares. If you're familiar with Edge from WWE, he kills it in this episode as Ares. This episode, it's just incredible. It feels like cinematography is just out of this world every single episode. The kids are great. They're following the books pretty solidly. And I'm really enjoying this series, man. It's on Disney Plus, so check that out. And then, of course, I've watched Echo episode 1. I haven't watched the other 4 yet. Only episode 1 because Percy Jackson came out the same freaking day as Echo. And so I was like, well, I got to watch Percy Jackson first. Echo, though, so far, episode 1, I thought the fight scene between her and Daredevil was freaking top notch, man. Like that whole fight sequence.
I was surprised they released those on the same day.
I am too, honestly. Like it's kind of strange that they did that. Just with
Yeah, a
how
lot of people are
popular.
going to be watching both of those.
Yeah, and I'm old, man. I wasn't staying up. So one thing I really liked about Echo, especially in this first episode, the only one I've seen, it was the use of sound. Because if you know anything about Maya, she is deaf. And so they incorporated like pure silence during certain
I
sequences. Like,
loved those scenes. And I have to admit, I watched all 5.
yeah. Oh, well, we're going to talk about it soon. But yeah, the incorporation of the sound and the lack of sound was really, really good, I found. And so that's what I've kind of been up to. What have you been up to?
I really haven't watched other than the 5 episodes of Echo. I don't think I watched anything. I read Quick Stops. That was the comic that I did the review on for Nerd Initiative. It was the second one in telling the origin story of Mooby, the mascot. The first one is more so like fun and full of sex, and the second one is sad and full of sex.
But of course, you need sad, sexy time.
Hilarity still ensues. It's a great comic. If you like Kevin Smith, even if you're not into comics, I can't recommend these books enough. They're just, this is volume 2. He did the 4 others for volume 1. The 4 others were all standalone issues on their own. So the story of Mooby is still not done. So it will continue in issue 3, which I very much look forward to reading. And of course, that's written by Kevin Smith and it's from Dark Horse Comics. So head to your local comic shop and get that. And then I watched Echo. That's it.
Did you, what's your spoiler-free thoughts on the series?
I really like it. I love the incorporation of the sign language. I love the scenes where she goes, where we're hearing what she's hearing, meaning nothing. I think it's a great combination of bringing in her culture with the badassery that she is and her childhood trauma and everything that's gone on with her over the years and why she is who she is. I think it's been great. I mean, I've loved it from beginning to end. It's interesting to see Kingpin in a different light than we're so used to seeing him, from the perspective of Daredevil, or, he's always just the bad guy. So it's nice to get more layers to him. Here's your Tim Stanley cameo. Tim hates Vincent D'Onofrio. But I think he's doing a great job.
I thought he kills it as Kingpin. Like I literally could not see anybody else playing Kingpin.
Oh my God. And he just looks like him. Like as soon as he comes out, he's just like giant.
Exactly. Like he is Kingpin. It's literally insane.
Yeah, and just that one fight scene was phenomenal. I cannot wait to get more of that. I hope we see her in the Daredevil show, which I feel like we will.
Oh, yeah. No, we're going to get more of her without a doubt. Like, I think they already confirmed that she's going to be in some of the Daredevil show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but no, I really liked it. I am happy I took sign language in high school and learned some when I was a kid, because there were times where the subtitles were disappearing too quick. Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. I was able to pick it up enough to know what was going on. I
think one thing that was really cool from what I noticed in episode 1 was how she, of course, like she's a deaf paraplegic in real life. So like she can sign and she can sign fast, but you could tell she was trying to slow it down in some senses, and like they were trying to slow it down in the show, and it was kind of funny for everybody else. But like, I do really enjoy how well they have. It was a really well made so far. Like again,
and it's nice to see, and you can kind of see because she was upset with Hawkeye for using an earpiece. And, she was saying you're too reliant on that. You need to know sign. And it's interesting to see that because all the people in her life learned it. Yeah. For, her mother and for her. So I thought that was very interesting. Like to her, that's a sign of respect. If you care enough about me, then you should learn sign. And like to Hawkeye, he's being like disrespectful to himself and to anybody else who is deaf. Because there is a thing in the community where some people don't believe that you should be reliant on hearing aids and whatnot. But yeah, if you're fluent in it, it's crazy how fast. There was a scene in the L word. Yeah, where it was Mary. Did I mention it? I was talking to somebody about it recently. Mary Madeline, who is in like all the deaf movies that you had to watch if you ever had to watch a movie about somebody being deaf in high school, she was in it. We had to watch some of those in sign language class, and she's dating this one girl who's hearing, but then her ex-girlfriend like shows up who's also deaf, and they get into this fight, and the hands that are just being thrown is like chaotic. And then when because they're arguing, and then the one ex leaves, and she looks to her hearing girlfriend, and she's like, "Did you get any of that?" And she's like, some of it. But I mean, they can sign as fast as we can talk. They can sign as fast as they can think.
I mean, it's that they are talking, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But yes, I love it. I think it's really good.
Well, right on. Let's move into some news. Why don't you kick us off with what news do we have this week?
Well, my first piece of news, actually, I feel like we have to credit Echo for this, is that if you go to Disney Plus and you want to watch the MCU in chronological order, you will now find Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, The Defenders, and Punisher listed in the chronological orders. Not exactly all the episodes, but when the first episode of that season starts, that's where it's placed chronologically. It would be lovely if they sprinkled the episodes properly,
Right.
but we get what we get. We don't get upset. Piece of news: Barbie is launching a women in film collection with director Barbie, movie star Barbie, studio exec Barbie, cinematographer Barbie.
Yeah, new doll's coming out.
Oh, that's fun.
Launching from the Barbie movie.
Nice. So Godzilla, King Kong is the new empire, has been moved up to March 29th. There is a remake of The Blob in the works with David Bruckner, and he's set to direct. The Blob?
Yeah, we're bringing The Blob back, man.
Wow, I don't think I've ever seen anything with The Blob. Tom Cruise has signed a deal with Warner Brothers. He will get an office in the lot with his production company, and he will develop original franchises and movies. Oh, is he going to be like his character in Tropic Thunder?
Maybe. I don't know. I know that he signed a deal with them, which means Tom Cruise has pretty much signed deals with Paramount, Warner Brothers, Universal. So he's collecting the Infinity Stones of movie sets or, movie companies pretty much at this point.
And my last piece of news is if you want to see the original songs for Country Bear Jamboree, you better get to Magic Kingdom by January 26th. And if you want to hear the song, all the guys that turn me on, turn me down, that will be gone.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's January 27th.
Even things.
When it will reopen with the new theming of like they're going to be singing Disney songs. I have no idea. They haven't set a date for that yet, but we will let you know as soon as we know.
We are burning just burning at the seams for more Country Bear Jamboree. Just absolutely bursting here. But yeah, anyways, in good news, The Mandalorian and Grogu are set to come to the movies. Beginning production in 2024, Dave Filoni is set to produce along with Kathleen Kennedy, and Jon Favreau is going to direct. Now, this really certainly feels like this is going to be the grand finale of Mando and Grogu, whatever that means. I mean, is it going to mean that their characters are done forever? No. But
maybe for Din Djarin.
It's probably the end of The Mandalorian as we know it as a series, unless they go ahead and do spinoffs with like Katie Sackhoff and all them, like exploring Mandalore more. But Din Djarin's probably done here, is what I'm guessing. Either way, really stoked. And kind of there are rumors in the works as far as whether or not this was going to be a movie or it would be season 4. And it looks like that, yeah, we're going to end up with season 4 or a movie, I should say. And then Ahsoka has season 2 has been confirmed. That's coming back at least. And no surprise there. We all knew that Ahsoka season 2 was going to be coming back. Now, for some Last of Us casting news, Caitlin Dever has been cast as Abby. I'm not going to spoil any more than that because if you're familiar with Abby, you know what's on the horizon. If you're unfamiliar with Abby, buckle up. Just buckle up. And she played actually in No One Will Save You, which was from Amazon Prime. It's a decent movie. It's a silent movie. She doesn't say a word the entire time in this movie. It's actually really interesting. And she was also in the movie Booksmart. So great actress. I think she's going to knock this out of the park. Just get ready, everybody. Just get ready. And then some more news. Gal Gadot was actually offered the role of Barbie, but has passed on it. And at that point, that's when Greta Gerwig specifically wrote the role of Barbie for Margot Robbie, which this movie doesn't work if it's Gal Gadot. Personally, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think Gal's an okay actress, but she's not. I don't think she would have been a good fit as Barbie.
No, I agree.
Yeah, she's not that good.
Especially in Wonder Woman 2, we saw she was
a wooden plank.
Not the best.
Yeah, a wooden plank. Now, some MegaCon news. We have Cameron Moynihan is going to be coming to MegaCon. You know him as Cal Kestis. And more Star Wars news because Ewan McGregor, that is, and Hayden Christensen have a panel at 6 p.m. on Saturday. And it was in such high demand that they're going to bring it back on Sunday. And they're going to open up more photo ops and also autographs. More to come there. I saw that if you're lucky enough to get a dual photo op, it's like $500. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I got kids to feed and stuff. So I don't know.
You're going to take out a mortgage to do a photo op?
Don't think so. However, if you want to be guaranteed a seat at their panels, you can pay for premium seats, which the cheapest is $50. Or you can just first come, first serve. I don't think we're going to be able to get into that panel. I have a feeling, unless we wait all day. It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I know.
It is like it's probably one that we want to go to, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the con as a whole just to go to that panel. I know it's going to be crazy, and it's a bucket list, but man,
we're gonna have to play it by ear. Well, and there was, and I think the reason they're doing that, other than obviously lining their pockets more, because everybody's doing that now, paying more to skip the line. Is last year there were some panels that like people were like in ridiculous lines outside waiting to get in, and once they let everybody in, there was plenty of room.
Yeah,
but they were like lined up in the hallway still. And I do think that there was one panel that I was like, I don't know why they put them in a smaller room and not in a big. Like when I went to Utah, I was surprised at how big all of the rooms were.
Oh, the room was huge. Yeah, all the panels we did at FanX.
Yeah, so there's some in MegaCon that aren't as big as the actors, as you know, the type of crowd that they would bring in.
It's like kind of like wild to me too that we've become so pay for everything that we do in life. Like we're already paying, crazy prices to get into the con, deservedly. Like cool, and then you want to pay if you want to do a photo op with somebody, it's at least $100.
And parking now is extra $120 if you go all 4 days. It's ridiculous.
Parking's expensive. The food's
parking
expensive.
Used to be $10 a day and you paid when you got there. Now you have to pay ahead of time. Fortunately, we go with a group and we are able to, like Tabby already bought Saturday and Sunday parking.
Yeah.
But nice. It's absurd. Yeah. And Kaylee was working one year, so we were able to park there, and
it is really crazy. Everything that we do in life is just so pay. And it's
dude,
we're getting
ridiculous.
Priced. It just is so depressing to think about, because it's like you're pricing people out. Like this is fun, but I feel like Comic-Cons have also lost their way in a sense of it used to be about comics. It used to be about
now they're for everybody.
Now it's
which is good and bad.
Great, by all means, bring actors and actresses and voice actors and actresses in. However, it's gotten to a point where it's like you're forgetting about the other half, and then everything's just so expensive. Like I'm not going to be able to pay $486 to get a picture with Ewan and Hayden, and then like you want me to do all these other photo ops and just everything there. It's crazy, man. And then not to mention, I also have 2 Comic-Cons coming in March, like GalaxyCon Richmond and then AwesomeCon in DC. So it's crazy. I'll leave it at that. So I'll get off my soapbox. Let's go ahead and dive into the comic book origin for Echo, aka Maya Lopez. We will be back after a word from these artificial sponsors that we have. All right, welcome back. Like I said, we're going to be talking about Echo's comic book origin. And the description for Echo on Marvel.com is that the deaf Cheyenne Latin American warrior known as Echo uses her photographic reflex abilities at first for vengeance in Hell's Kitchen and then as a new Avenger. Now, Maya Lopez AKA Echo was created in 1998 by writer/artist David Mack and Joe Quesada, and first appeared in Daredevil #9 through issue 15, which is a really, I cannot sit here and tell you guys enough. Read that run because it's so beautifully done. It opens up with Matt playing the piano in a somber mood, and there's a lot of really beautiful imagery there of Echo. Maya was also playing the piano. They got like her dad in the background, a picture of him. There's musical notes all around. This one is very emotional. It's a very emotional comic book. So I can't speak enough about that. But why don't you go ahead and dive into her powers real quick?
So her powers are that she can mimic any physical action she sees, making her an incredible acrobat and, person great in a fight. I always say that one word wrong, so I'm just going to skip it. She is also a pianist and a ballerina thanks to this skill. And since she is deaf, this ability also helps her lip read and verbally communicate to an extent that deaf people generally cannot. Her profession is as a performance artist / adventurist. While she's in New York in the MCU, the comics have her based in LA. Much like we saw in Hawkeye, she was born deaf, and her father, Willie Crazy Horse Lincoln, did work for Kingpin. Kingpin did, in the comics, kill her father, and in his dying moments, her dad asked Kingpin to care for Maya, despite the fact he killed her, leaving a haunting handprint on her face as he died. And again, you saw that in Hawkeye. It wasn't the full handprint that you see in the comics, but he does grab her face and leave blood on her face. So Kingpin weirdly encouraged her to date Matthew Murdock, which she did while attempting to avenge her father by hunting down Daredevil. In an effort to defeat him, she studied videos of Bullseye to use against Daredevil. When she learned Matt and Daredevil were one and the same, which she did because she noticed a boo-boo that Matt had, and then she saw on Daredevil, she did not kill him. And he pled a very good case and explained to her that, hey, when your dad was murdered, I was a kid. How could I have done this?
Yes. Diving into the story. Sorry.
No, go for it. Cause you just read it.
I just read it. Of course. And so, yes, Kingpin knows who Matthew Murdock is. And he knows the story starts up with a janitor who works for Kingpin coming to the law offices of Murdock and Foggy. Basically,
that's my shirt. Nelson and Murdock.
Yes. He's going to snitch on
avocados
Kingpin.
At law, though, but it doesn't.
And Kingpin hires a hitman to kill this janitor. That happens. And so from this point, Murdock's out there as Daredevil fighting people. This is when he sends Echo after Matt, and he basically sets up Matt with Echo to kind of get close to him to blow the case or hurt him and all that kind of stuff. And the wound that Matt sustained is from the bullet. It grazed his cheek as he was too late to react to the bullet that killed the janitor. These two go back and forth fighting, but he also it's really beautiful because he recognizes her perfume. Now in the comics, she's a lot different than you see in the show. So in the comics, she's very feminine, if that makes sense. She's skimpy dresses. She dresses very provocatively to get
more so
Matt.
like Elektra.
Yes. And, they go on dates and he's talking about her perfume and all this stuff. I think
her dad died younger in the comics.
Yes. And
so it would make sense that in the show, we just saw her dad die in Hawkeye. So she's still grieving that. And she was just completely, raised by her dad. And so I feel like that makes sense where she's had to put on just this rough exterior and nothing else. And she's had no feminine influences in her life. And she's been raised to be basically a gangster.
She was raised to be a hired hand, essentially. In the comics, he is shot by Kingpin. As a kid, he's basically take care of my daughter, which Kingpin does. And for better or for worse, uses her hand. And then in the show, he has somebody kill her dad, and much later in life.
As Ronin, Hawkeye.
Yes. And so from this point in the comic books, they fight, they go back and forth a bunch. She gets tapes on Kung Fu that she watches to learn how to fight. And then at one point she watches a videotape of him fighting Bullseye to kind of study Matt's moves. And he realizes through the perfume smell that it's Echo. And it comes to a boiling point where she finally lures him out. They're fighting. She recognizes the wound on his face, and because he doesn't want to hurt her at any point.
Right.
And he's basically like, look, I was a kid. I was in elementary school when your dad died.
In general,
wasn't me.
He doesn't aim to kill. No. Although, some of those people had brain bleeds that he knocked out and died.
Oh, it's like Batman, right? Batman doesn't kill, but damn well Batman sent some people to the hospital to brain damage.
Right.
They're not dead. They're just a vegetable.
You really think you're not killing anybody? Yeah.
But yeah, so he doesn't want to hurt her in any form. It comes down to where they fight, and then he's like, look, it's not me. He takes his mask off, and they share a really beautiful moment. And at that point, she goes, finds Kingpin, who was shot a bunch. In a battle, there's a sequence. Kingpin gets shot a bunch, knocked into a river. He shows back up and is like, hey, we need to talk. Elektra pulls a gun, shoots him in the eyes. And at the end of this comic book, you see that Kingpin is now blind in both eyes.
In both eyes?
Yes.
Oh, isn't that ironic? So now he's like his mortal enemy.
Exactly. The symmetry is beautiful, folks.
Wow.
The symmetry. And that's the setup of a Echo in the comic books of Marvel.
So when did they see Mallrats?
It was in issue 1. They went and saw Mallrats together, and she was like, "What's this? Did he say Snoochie Boochies?" There is a Mallrats reference, folks. There's 2 different Kevin Smith references, which Kevin Smith later goes on to write Daredevil, which is kind of fun. But yeah, no, the art in that comic book, that particular run, is very, very good.
That's awesome. He must have been so excited when he found that out originally.
I know I would be,
being a comic book nerd himself. Yeah.
So why don't you take us the next little bit?
Okay, so like you just said, she later shot Kingpin, blinding him and not killing him. And she joined the Avengers as the Ninja Ronin, which is interesting because obviously Hawkeye takes up that in Hawkeye, when he kills her father, he's referred to as Ronin. And that's the costume that you see him in Endgame. And they never refer to him as Ronin in Endgame, but a lot of people right away were like, that's Ronin.
Yes.
In the comics, Echo as Ronin appeared in the New Avengers, and in this run, she was sent to Japan to infiltrate the criminal underworld. So some of the stats, I think these stats, I had to write these down because they're comically ridiculous, and I think we've veered off from some of this comic ridiculousness in current comics. But Echo is listed as 5'9", and I don't have her weight was like 105 pounds. That's like anorexic with no muscles.
I mean,
then Kingpin,
you're not really fighting and beating somebody like Matt Murdock at 105 pounds. I'm sorry.
No, and in 5'9", that's way too tall for that height.
I mean,
she's for that weight.
Way too tall. Yeah, she's.
So the healthy weight for somebody of that size is like, I thought I wrote these down, is like 130 pounds or something. No, even more than that. 130 pounds is low for 5'9".
So a healthy weight for a woman that height is 131 to 160.
There you go. Thank you. And Kingpin is 6'7" and 450 pounds.
Dude is a unit.
Oh, I did write it down. And so with the healthy weight for somebody that height is 198 to 242 pounds. So both of them are very off the scale in very unhealthy ways and need to look at their life choices. I do love in the show too that like she's not like this frail little thing. Like she is a badass warrior. Really like that. Okay, so she was killed at one point while attempting this underground infiltration, and she was magically resurrected by a Skrull who was posing as Elektra and was the head of the Hand at the time. The Hand are the bad guys that we see Daredevil fight a lot, not to be confused with the Foot, which are the ninjas that they fight in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I kept getting confused when I first started watching Daredevil. So the New Avengers storyline continued for Echo and Moon Knight, where the two of them have something going on. After Moon Knight messed up her undercover mission where she was trying to infiltrate the underground, and she was posing as a stripper when this happened. And when she does die before she's resurrected, Moon Knight does not handle it well.
That's tough.
It is tough.
Now, in Avengers 2018, Echo becomes the Phoenix Force host. This led to a short run called Phoenix Song Echo. Echo here was hunted by the adversary for her powers. There was time travel in this comic book because, much like Anna in Supernatural, the adversary went back to kill her ancestors, thereby preventing her from being born, which causes Echo to team up with other native heroes such as River in the Mutant Forge to travel back in time to save her ancestors. She eventually gives up the Phoenix powers. At one point, her being deaf helps her save the day when the demonic Fear Lord, Despire, acquires the Cosmic Cube, or we know it as the Tesseract, and preys on the sadness and fear of the Avengers. However, since Echo is deaf, she was able to resist his voice, which allows the team to defeat the bad guy.
I love when the disability is an advantage. I think that's awesome. I love when they do that.
Yes, I do too. It makes it interesting to see how they play through that. And at this point, all of Echo is indeed out. They dropped all 5 episodes. However, Lauren, why don't you give us a quick refresher in case people forgot what came before?
So when we saw Echo in Hawkeye, again, she's played by the same actress. And the summary of her story was she was told Ronin killed her father, which he did, Ronin being Hawkeye. However, his death was orchestrated by Fisk. I love how they named Fisk in the show, because when you know somebody, like you create a sign for that person, so you're not always spelling their name out.
Yes.
And they had it go the F to the K real quick. I thought that was cute, the little Fisk.
Yes.
Every time they did that. So now everybody knows how to say Fisk in sign language. You just go from the F to the K. So much like the comics, Fisk does view her as a daughter, but when she learns the truth, she is not happy. Her story ends when Hawkeye is with her and she's driving a Trust-a-Bro moving company van.
Yes.
And she then finds Fisk in an alley, and he was not in great shape. He was having a rough time because Kate Bishop
just got hit by a car, blown up by grenades.
Yeah. I mean, but when you're 450 pounds, you can usually take
absolute tank. Absolute tank.
And then Echo then shoots Fisk while he pleads with her. And of course, we're left to assume he's dead, but I don't think anybody thought that he was actually dead. Now, as far as Daredevil, the last time we saw him, he was having lunch with She-Hulk as Hulk shows up to introduce us to his love child. And the last time we saw Kingpin in Netflix's Daredevil, he was actually agreeing to go to jail a second time in the series to keep Vanessa safe. All of that, I believe, has happened way before this, because if you go to the timeline on Disney Plus, obviously Echo takes place right after Hawkeye.
Right.
And all of this seems like it's much after Daredevil. So Kingpin must have gotten out of jail again.
They don't really explain that. I kind of hope they go back and do explain this.
Yes, because there is an end credit scene for Echo, and I will not spoil that.
Oh.
But it made me want to go back and rewatch Daredevil because I thought I had remembered something from that was connected to that end credit scene, but then the timing wouldn't necessarily make sense.
Wait.
So I need to go rewatch Daredevil.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I saw your notes and was like, wait, you spoiled the end credit scene for me. But no, it's where we last saw Daredevil, which is the end credit scene having family lunch with She-Hulk as the Hulk shows up with his love child.
Would you think that was the end credit scene? There was a love child?
Well, I thought like there was a love child of She-Hulk and Daredevil, and I was like, dang.
That would be fun.
Like, hell yeah. Okay. But yes, Echo will be leading into Daredevil Born Again, which has ramped up but has not begun filming to my knowledge yet. The writer strike kind of put things behind, so they're going back and handling all of that. And so that's essentially Echo, her backstory. Now I highly recommend, like I said, go read Marvel Knights Daredevil issue 9 through 15. It's a very good run, very beautifully drawn, very beautifully told, a lot of good emotional moments. Go check that out. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
So the guy, Vicky, that we meet in Echo, he was
icky.
So I just looked him up because I was like, I know this guy's face. He looks so familiar. He's in The Mandalorian. He's only in one episode, but he's in 9 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which they continue to say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has to be a different multiverse. It just doesn't make sense. They went so far off
doesn't exist.
the rails. But it was so perfectly lined up till Thor Dark World. And then later they started to really... Because after Thor Dark, I mean, they literally went and they cleaned up the mess that Thor made. But then they went completely off the rails. That's who that guy is. I think he was a dick in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. I'll have to look into that. But maybe it's his multiverse doppelganger.
Ooh.
With a completely different name.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, that is Echo. Thanks for hanging out with us. Next week, we have a very, very fun episode as we're going to be diving into Scott Pilgrim, the movie, the TV show, all of the above. That is next week's episode. Make sure you hang out with us again, and cheers.